Let's look ahead to the Cowboys' expectations this season. What do you think the vibe is with Brian Schottenheimer taking over? And I guess how long of a leash does he have with this team to really turn things around?
Probably a longer leash than anybody thinks. The Cowboys don't really fire coaches. Jason Garrett was given 10 years and they just didn't fire him. They just let his contract expire. The same thing happened with Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy was given 5 years and they let his contract expire. So Brian Schottenheimer getting a 5-year deal, unless this is just so bad where the Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the league for multiple seasons, I do think he's going to be given the opportunity to try to turn this thing around. It's funny because I think Cowboy fans have actually I think they're starting to vibe with Brian Schottenheimer a little bit. They like the staff that he's put in place. They like everything that he said in the media. It seems like Cowboy fans are coming around on the idea of Brian Schottenheimer. The problem is, I don't think they've come around on Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and the rest of the front office. So it's this very weird situation where I think Cowboy fans are getting more optimistic about the coaching staff, but more pessimistic that the front office knows how to build a championship caliber team.
I've noticed that vibe around Schottenheimer, and I was a little taken aback by that. I wasn't sure what the reception was going to be, but with the Jerry Jones family, I do understand there is some frustration there. Cowboys fans seem once again underwhelmed right now. Are they right to be frustrated, or is this just kind of the ebbs and flows of the joy of being a Cowboys fan?
I mean, I listen. I've been a Cowboy fan my entire life. I don't remember the early '90 Cowboys teams very much. So we're talking about 30 years of, like, if you're a fan like me, 30 years of watching this team never reach the NFC Championship game, and watching a team like Washington, who has been a dumpster fire for the entire decade, have one draft and suddenly be in the NFC Championship game. I think it is frustrating to see all of these other teams in the NFC have success. And then the Eagles in your own division winning a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl in 2017 with a different coach, a different quarterback. I think there is a lot of frustration. And I'm not sure where the hope is right now, because this
Mm.
is a franchise that seems like they're getting further and further away from being a contender. They've got a quarterback who is being paid a lot of money, who's also hurt right now. It's tough, but as we know in the NFL, things can change really fast. You have one
Mhm.
really good draft, one signing works out way better than you anticipate, and all of a sudden you're a contender. So, as bleak as it may be right now, you're never that far away from actually contending for a Super Bowl.
They kind of give the Toronto Maple Leafs of the NFL, the Cowboys. I feel like they have a similar vibe.
It's not great, but it's all, again, once you get to the NFL season, you start winning
Mhm.
games, things can turn around really fast. But in terms of like off-season vibes, I think it's got to be one of the worst in the league right now.
Well, and you bring up the division they're in. Where do you see this team sitting in the division? The Eagles coming off a Super Bowl, you mentioned it. The Commanders have clearly improved and so quickly, and the Giants are the New York Giants. Where are the Cowboys this year?
It's tough because I think the Cowboys actually match up fairly well against Philly and Washington. They beat Washington last year without with Dak Prescott out of the
Mhm.
lineup, with Cooper Rush on the field, and they should have beaten him a second time when they had Trey Lance starting instead of Cooper Rush at the very end of the season. Dak Prescott has historically played really well against Philadelphia, but if you're looking at like how those teams compare to the rest of the NFC and the rest of the NFL, I mean, it's Philly, Gap, Washington, Gap, Dallas. And that's just a tough spot to be in when you're the third best team in your division. Again, things change fast. Nobody has won the NFC East in back to back seasons since 2003. So this is not a division where you see the same teams winning over and over and over again. It can flip quick, but I'm not sure Dallas is going to be that next team to overtake the Eagles.
Okay, last question for you. Your big takeaway over the last couple days, is there a team you're looking at where you're going, "Oh, wow, I'm kinda taken aback by the leap they've taken," because I don't necessarily think that's the team we're talking about right
It's not the Cowboys, I can promise you that. It's the Chicago Bears, right? One of the things I
Yeah.
like in free agency is if you have a plan, right?
Mhm.
So these signings, we never know. Some of these guys will fit well, some of them won't. What I care more about is organizational clarity and executing a plan. And it's clear that the Bears decided they needed to get better in their trenches, and that's why they traded for Joe Thuney. It's why they traded for Jonah Jackson. They signed Drew Dahlman. I think that was one of the first signings of free agency, and then they went and upgraded their defensive line with Deo and Grady Jarrett. So this is a team that already had a lot of talent, but grabbing those 5 guys in the trenches, I think is going to make them a contender in a really, really good and stacked NFC North.
That was one of my big takeaways too. I think they
Yeah,
could be a pretty fun watch this year. Marcus, thank you so much for joining me and enjoy the rest of your week.
of course, anytime.